The 2016 GlobalMindED Conference featured 10 conference tracks, more than 230 speakers, 60 first-generation to college students, and 600 thought leaders in K-12, higher education, technology, business, innovation, STEM, policy, and global work skills.
Well, it's exactly what we do at the Department of State and hope to tell our story so that we can bring more people through access and through opportunity. So I'm here to talk about the opportunities, career opportunities at the Department of State. And I'm also here because I'm from Denver. I'm a first-generation student myself, a university student. I left Denver years ago, come back all the time because I have family here. But again, I just thought this was a great opportunity to share my story and to talk about, again, opportunities at the State Department.
The issue that we're focusing here at the GlobalMindED Conference is access and equity and opportunity. And it's something we really believe in. Siena is fully behind increasing the talent pool in this area, so we're rooting for GlobalMindED all the way. GlobalMindED is advancing this because they are having this conversation, making it a forum, making it a subject, bringing thought leadership together from the tech industry, myself as an example from Siena, as well as the educators and business owners and leaders in the community in order to do this. In the tech industry, it's no secret that there has always been a long lineage of innovation. However, where we are trying to prove upon is the base of the human talent that we have and getting more gender balance, more diversity in there. It's clearly the right thing to do, but a lot of studies have shown that it increases productivity, innovation, creativity, and overall performance of a company, and we're fully behind that all the way.
So education is a fascinating space, and I come from a family in South Carolina for whom higher education, at least, is fairly new. I come from a family that, despite not having lots of its own experience of higher education, always emphasized education, always made sure that I and my brothers understood that education was going to be our pathway to opportunity. And at the same time, I can hear my grandmother saying it right now. You know, I remember complaining to her about some work I was doing in high school, and she said, "Oh, that's nice, baby, but it's not about you. It's about the people who will have opportunities because of you. So don't do it for yourself. Do it for the people who are coming after you, just like the ones who came before you did it for you." And that's the kind of family that I come from, and education is this industry, this whole enterprise is the way that I get to justify the extra space I take up on the planet, right? If I can give other people the opportunity to have even a sliver of the opportunities that I have had, then I'll feel like I have done something significant. And this is a wonderful industry, and even those of us on the for-profit side, we'd all be making more money selling real estate or bonds, right? It's a combination of doing well and doing good. We do this because we believe in the power of the market to be a lever for change. And I definitely believe that. That's why I've devoted my career to this and why I continue to do that and expect that the rest of my career will be very much the same. So I love the industry, and I love conferences like GlobalMindED that give me an opportunity to bring my skills and my networks to bear on the problems that we have in common, on the opportunities we see in common, and on the work that we do in common.
You know, I always get excited about bringing people together for education, but for me, it's really sharing that knowledge with the students that need it. And you know, the more students we can get to, you know, the more guidance they have. I've been very lucky in my education and you know, professional pursuits, but I did it on my own. I really didn't have anyone to guide me, and I think there's a lot of opportunity to provide that guidance to folks that really need it. You know, I think there's so many great minds out there, and diversity is the key to kind of innovation and new thinking. But without having the access and the tradition of education, a lot of those great minds, you know, don't get to see their full potential. I'll be monitoring a panel this afternoon on higher ed skills as they relate to the workforce, and I think it's an important topic because the unemployment rate in this country looks very attractive, but there's a mismatch between skills that especially students coming out of high school or coming out of college have and what's really needed in the workforce. And so jobs go unfilled, students aren't trained appropriately, and again, it gets in the way of access.
So this conference is really important to us for a host of different reasons. We're seeing that around the world, we can't attract the tech talent that we want. Part of that is that we're not educating kids to be able to work in the jobs of the future. And a big part of that is that we're not training women and people of color to take those jobs. And so we have real concerns about access, about diversity in a whole host of different professions, but especially in technology firms. An organization like this is great because it pulls together people across so many different sectors, and it sparks a conversation to say, how do we work together to address these issues of access, of education, of really opening doors for people who don't have those doors being open for them now. And real things are happening. You're seeing the sparks fly, you're seeing people have conversations that they wouldn't normally be having. We see people at this conference from all around the country, coming together and connecting with best practices, understanding that there are things that are already working that we can replicate in other areas, and then asking questions. Sometimes you just don't know how to do it. And you need to sit down with people who are testing things and say, how do we work together to find the solutions? So at Microsoft, we have programs all around the world that are looking at how we create the right partnerships to create access and to get more people into the pipeline for better paying jobs. And this is one of those engagements. This is the place where we can engage with people who are really trying to find solutions to access and to education for everybody. So technology is changing education all around the world. We're seeing it because of mobile, because of cloud, because of data access. We are understanding how people are learning in ways that we never could have imagined just 5 years ago. Where that will be 5 years from now or 10 years from now, we are imagining. We don't yet know for sure. But one of the things at Microsoft that's important is bringing everybody to the table so that we understand their challenges and concerns and the opportunities. And so it's conferences like this that bring together students, that bring together teachers, educators really at every level, university professors are here, and people that are actually working in aeronautics and technology and all sorts of other focus areas to come together and say, what is that future? And then secondarily, how can we ensure that everyone has access to that future? How do we ensure that kids are prepared for that teachers are trained, that policies are created that foster that? And so that's why we're excited to be here. It is a real conversation about things that matter for the future of students in this country.
I lived and worked in Central and Eastern Europe for 19 years, investing money broadly, and it started with the wall coming down. And about 98% of the economy was state-controlled. The true path to success for those people living there was all about family and education, because there really wasn't anything else. No food in the stores, no goods to buy. And when that economy started to change and flourish, that one universal truth about education remained. And if you're not educated and or you can't learn, you can't adopt new technologies. So I think it really goes hand in hand. It doesn't matter if we're in a sophisticated environment where we feel like we have access to almost anything, or unsophisticated environments where education is still extremely vital. I think it takes this community making an impact here that actually makes an impact globally.
We're living in a new economy, right? And this idea that we're shifting from an industrial-based, manufacturing-based economy to a global economy, a knowledge-based economy. And what does that look like? And so events like this help us think about that perspective, give us that global perspective on how we see problems and what problems we're facing and how do we solve these problems, not just through one lens like K-12 education, but through all the lenses, through K-12 and health and business and science and all these other things, that it's not just one track to think about. Well, so education is what disrupts poverty, right? Education is a silver bullet, and we live in a world now where education is at our fingertips, right? We have the world's information at our fingertips. How do we take advantage of that? right? When I was growing up, I had to use the library on 51st Street and 10th Avenue in Hell's Kitchen. That was my resource center. We now have 100 million of those libraries at our fingertips. And so having that information at our fingertips is going to change the world. And it's doing this slowly. You know, we got to keep in mind that in 1995, only 1% of the world was online, right? And 1995 wasn't that long ago. It took 10 years to get to the first billion people. It took 5 years to get to the second billion and 4 years to get to the third billion. So as much as we think we're this technology society, only 45% of the world is online. So we're at the very, very beginning of what this looks like. So I'm excited to see what the world looks like in 20 years or 50 years when finally everyone has access to all the world's information. How does that level the playing field? How does that help us educate a society so that they can take the corrective actions that we need?
So I'm a freshman at Stanford University. I just finished up my first year, and what a better way to celebrate the end of my first year to be here today. So I'm really excited to be here. I think it's the idea of that right now there's kind of a disconnect in what we're learning in the college setting and how we're applying that in the real world. I know a lot of times a lot of graduate students or my peers have told me how when they've entered the workforce, they've had a hard time trying to figure out how to apply themselves. And I think this conference really is kind of forming the bridge between that and helping students like us who really want to make a difference and kind of, we have a lot of different goals ourselves. And so to be able to know how to put those forward, to be able to gain those skills, such as networking and, having these connections who really can mentor us and help us do that is really exciting.
The issues about people. At the end of the day, people really matter. And people matter at all levels of life. And I think what GlobalMindED is doing, it is helping a fast-paced world to understand, let's slow down enough to embrace all the people that we come in contact with to make a meaningful contribution to humanity. At the end of the day, humanity really, truly matters, but we have to do something about it. And global-mindedness is really looking at it from people my age to the youngest person you could possibly get involved, helping each generation to understand that they too can be part of the generation of promise. Diversity is a given. Every human being surrounds himself or herself with diversity. It's our life. We have no choice about that. But we do have a choice about inclusion. We do have a choice about how we relate to people and our ability to reach out, reach across, and do the types of things, if you will, that may not have been in our wheelhouse when we started. But since the journey has begun, we realize that we can do more by being intimately involved in the lives of others from the perspective of caring, from the perspective of helping them to maximize their potential, and more importantly, realizing that the assets that we have are better utilized when they are shared with others, giving everybody an opportunity to look at what can I bring to the table of humanity. To me, that's the essence of inclusion.
The thing that I tried to encourage the audience to think about this morning was a concept of what it would look like if, as a country, we were to create a true talent development pipeline that begins at early childhood and carries all the way into the workplace. And so I like to call it an edge economy, right? What would it look like to build a true edge economy? And the idea, of course, is that as you think about all the little steps in the educational process, they're barely connected, right? We hardly even follow a student from middle school to high school in the same school district with any data about them, with any of the relationships or their, understanding of who they are and how they learn, right? So, these are all, in many ways, they should be a seamlessly integrated talent development pipeline, even into the workplace, right? Where you think of examples of employers saying they don't have graduates with the skills needed for their jobs. I mean, that's a fundamental communication issue. Employers not working with higher education institutions and vice versa. It's also really trying to get into an understanding of what it means to have a successful educational experience in terms of its linkages to a great job and a great life, which is what everybody's trying to achieve. So what we've learned in our research is that when it comes to measures in education that are linked to great success in the workplace and overall well-being in your life later, students are woefully underprepared. And in many ways, you'd say the national scorecard is inadequate. Whether you look at K-12 or higher ed, it's kind of the same story.
So I'm a first-generation student at the University of Portland, and I'm studying mechanical engineering with a minor in mathematics. So this is a great conference covering how we can, close the hiatus between first-generation students going into STEM careers in the workforce and kind of overcoming those challenges and bringing more first-generation students and bringing the education to the workforce. After this conference, I'll be in contact with my director at my school for the first generation program. From there, I'll be able to share the information I learned here at the conference to other students at my school, and we can move on from there. For me, math is kind of at the same level within all languages, all school levels. Growing up, English wasn't my first language learning, so that was always kind of difficult for me to get in the classroom and start writing in English and kind of talking to people who have English as their first language. But math for me was kind of the same all around. It was same in both languages. It was something I can adapt to either way, so kind of grew up loving it. My plan after pursuing a mechanical engineering degree is getting into the biomedical master's program at my school. So after I graduate, I will hopefully get into this program, and then I will obtain a master's program in biomedical engineering. And then from there, hopefully get an internship making prostheses and all of that cool stuff.
I'm a first-generation college student, and if we look at the future of education, we have to do a better job at thinking thoughtfully about systematic approaches that will support those who come from low-income backgrounds, and in many cases are first-generation college students. So literally those who are paving the way in their family, climbing a ladder that no one around them has ever climbed before. So the more and more we can think thoughtfully about the best innovations, the best career interventions that will help them live a sustainable life that no one in their family historically has lived prior, I think that is such an important conversation for the next couple days. I think what's important and what's unique about the GlobalMindED conference is that it's gleaning in, is highlighting on specifically underserved students and how can we best support them, but also bringing in leaders who share very comparable narratives as these students and across the country. And I think the more and more we can do a better job in really expanding and sharing, leaders sharing their stories along with different interventions and ways to support students and even teachers for that matter in particularly low-income communities. I think that's a huge value add, and I think that's why I'm here today, to really be part of that conversation along with other leaders around the country that are moving the needle as well.
I work with my team to incubate 50 to 60 startups at a time, all focused on driving education through technology. So we work with K-12, higher ed, and workforce startups who are all interested in driving change in the space, shifting teacher practice, and improving student outcomes through the use of technology. One thing that we really focus on at GSB Labs when it comes to our specific innovation approach for ed tech is who's the user, why that solution, and how do you ensure that that feedback loop between the product that you're building and the user that you're trying to impact is being maintained in the proper way. So we often find that founders of startups often can't wear every single hat that you need in the ed tech space, and why should they, right? They have to wear the education hat, the business hat, and the tech hat. So what we do at GSB Labs is we help them connect those dots. We help them fill in those gaps, whether it's through accessing our mentor network of 150 plus experts in the space, from Guy Kawasaki to Tom Kalinske, who's the former CEO of Leapfrog and Mattel, to educators of the Oakland Unified School District, to the Khan Academy schools, so that they know as founders, who am I building this product for and how am I going to make them love it? There is this clear link that is existing in the market today around how education and entrepreneurship can lead to economic mobility, and in turn, a stable community, a stable society. So in the two panels that I served on, one was why do we need to empower individuals to be entrepreneurs in the workplace and how? And the second one was on non-traditional pathways to promote individuals as innovators and entrepreneurs. So this trend that I'm seeing at this conference is that we don't have to have the same path that our parents had. Even 10 years ago, the pathways that learners take to get to that end goal is not one way. It's multifaceted. And in fact, what we're encouraging learners to do, and what I really appreciate about GlobalMindED, is that we want individuals to think about, what are you doing now that's important to you now? And once you finish that project in the now, how are you going to gather that evidence and that data you need to make that next decision? That next decision could be very different than what you anticipated before, and that's what I'm really hoping that the attendees get out of this conference, is alternative ways about thinking of their own education.
There's been a lot of conversation about the role of technology. So I think these new media can really help kids learn. We've often thought of learning about other cultures and other languages as kind of maybe an add-on or something that it's not language arts and reading, and it's not math, so we'll get to that. But now we see that's something that kids can get very excited about. The chance as a 5-year-old, as an 8-year-old, to go on the internet and have a video chat with other 5-year-olds or 8-year-olds, share language, learn about each other's cultures. I really think that this is an exciting time for global learning, and so technology makes that happen. What does a new kind of classroom where every student has a digital device look like? How is that different from a teacher-centered classroom, which most of us went to? So I do believe that I sometimes like to call these new devices weapons of mass instruction, where kids can now, and it's my belief, learn more things earlier than we formerly thought. Learning another language, for instance. I mean, most educators will say, well, that's really hard and we don't have enough teachers, so we'll just do that in high school. But in fact, the research shows the best time to learn another language, as we all learn our own native language, is from the time we're very young. So bilingual education, the importance of learning another language, and of course, as you learn another language, you learn about other cultures. So it's a great way to become a citizen of the world. A 5-year-old can become a citizen of the world now in a way that we never would have believed 20 or 30 years ago. Yeah, what's great about GlobalMindED is that it brings together people interested in global learning, but from many different perspectives. So there are certainly school teachers here, but also professors from higher education. There are business folks. There are foundation folks. There are folks who are heading up community-based organizations. So I think that this is what we need, is more and coming together, diverse communities really forming around what can we all do to make global learning a priority in our communities. Because I believe the communities such as Denver here that really understand what can now be done through technology, through these sorts of alliances, they will be the ones that can really advance. As long as they say, well, we're just going to work within our own community. We're not going to be global, and we're not going to see the global marketplace as our marketplace. They're the ones that are always going to be sort of narrowed in their impact. So I give a lot of credit to the folks here in Colorado for organizing this and saying that we want Colorado to be a state of global learning. So global learning is not only about getting excited about the rest of the world and learning about new ideas and cultures and languages, but it also connects so directly to the future of our workforce and workforce development. Those students who can understand more about the world, who feel comfortable in more diverse teams of workers, understand the global marketplace, they're the ones who will be the most valuable staffs, entrepreneurs. They're the ones who are going to invent the new industries and businesses. So this becomes very important for the future of the global workforce here in Colorado.
I initially came here looking to explore what's going on in education so I could share with my clients. And at the same time, I see my kids in their lives, and my son, who when he was in kindergarten went to the principal's office like 5 times every week, and he's so disruptive because he thinks everything about school is ridiculous. He wants to play and invent and create and run around and be in nature, and he just doesn't understand why he has to sit there all that time, and then why he has to do more homework when he gets home when he could be playing. So he asked me that when he was 5 or 6. And then my daughter, when she was 8 and she's almost 11, started asking questions like, Mom, how have there been any girl presidents in the US? And why aren't there any girls on the money? You know, and why aren't we more than half the planet? Why? I don't get it. Like, I feel like there's something missing here. Like, I don't get why there's not more girls leading things. And between all of that and the work I was doing, I just really started listening. I said, these kids really see the world differently. They really see the world not with all of this, you know, separation and all these structures we created that take us away from the whole idea that we are the same and we have all our unique gifts at the same time. And if they're able to explore that at an early age and apply it in the world and be heard and listened to, I thought that would be amazing.
As the world is getting smaller, we have to start creating a dialogue where we come together as human beings, and then to create a narrative as well, right? And that's one of the things that we plan on doing going forward, to create the dialogue, a narrative, and then to have measurables behind it that can actually have a positive effect for the students that are involved, but also the educators, the policymakers, and those that are involved in education, so they can really have an understanding as to how important this is and how this is at the core of the direction of the human experience around the world.
The global-minded community believes that those who are first generation to college, underrepresented, or living below the poverty line deserve the same access to opportunity that their middle and upper middle class counterparts have in order to close the economic gap. Please join GlobalMindED to create a capable, diverse talent pipeline. The time is now, and we look forward to working with you on June 21st through 23rd, 2017, Denver, Colorado.